Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru, the animation supervisor of the Bardock special, the animator of Trunks' transformation into a Super Saiyan, animated the first Kamehameha within the series, the man behind the design for Super Saiyan 4, praised consistently by the series author Akira Toriyama for his ability to replicate his style, even to this point within several interviews he went as far as to say that he had difficulty telling them apart and delivering some of my personal favourite character shoots to date, while having a large part in ushering in a new look within the series. Join me today as we delve into why Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru was and still is a legend within the franchise. So, although uncredited, according to an interview, Nakatsuru's first step into the franchise was as early as episode 4 in the original Dragon Ball series. In total, he contributed key animation within 16 episodes, then thereafter 25 episodes in Dragon Ball Z, 1 in GT, and 1 in Super, while also working as a key animator in a stack of films and specials, and famously took over as character designer from Maeda for the final portion of Z, and continued on with the role into GT, and additionally worked as an animation supervisor a handful of times. But Dragon Ball isn't the only series he has worked on. He has been within several blockbuster series such as One Piece, One Punch Man, and Naruto, where he worked on 3 movies, and this is all in regards to key animation, and a fair amount of work on the Black Clover series, including filling in the role of animation director on more than one occasion, and further contributed a plethora of character designs to the Digimon franchise. So now let's delve into the magic behind his work. Now the first notable aspect I brought forth before and was a key point of praise by the author, and that is his style. As mentioned many times on this channel, Dragon Ball's style changed quite dramatically over the series' publication, and with a number of reasons. One, for example, is that Toriyama felt that the anime had an angular touch and believed that this look went well with the fighting, and so he would begin to imitate it as it further gave a sense of speed and sped up his own work process. However, unlike many others, Nakatsuru was quite adept in imitating his style throughout the entirety of the series. For example, this piece of Goku from the final episode in Dragon Ball GT really captures Goku's look towards the end of the Buu arc in the manga, with much smaller eyes, larger pupils, and quite a large neck, which was quite a shift in style for Toriyama, even compared to the previous arcs. However, Nakatsuru nails these stylistic changes perfectly. Or even much earlier in this series with this piece of Bardock he drew, you can notice the aspects such as the nose, mouth, eyes, neck, and even the jawline are near identical to how Toriyama draws these particular features. He even seemed to have coloured it in himself using watercolour, in contrast to acrylic paint, which was the general material used for character sheets, and once again brings another Toriyama-esque touch to this piece. But it wasn't just in the animation department that he displayed this talent. Nakatsuru was given the opportunity to work as the artist for 2 mangas, New Cashman and The Return of Dr. Slump, where he channeled all the charm and stylistic notes from Akira Toriyama's art into these 2 series. Another quite famous stylistic addition that Nakatsuru brought over from Toriyama's work was highlights, seen as early as in the Namek arc such as episode 70 or 95, but dominated episode 120 especially, which became a common feature in both Dragon Ball GT and into modern Dragon Ball, and also a stylistic take Tadayoshi Yamamoru would adopt into his own work. It should also be further noted that he was equally quite faithful to the character sheets laid out by character designer Minoru Maeda. However, this is just the beginning to the magic of his art. His style of shading although definitely changed over the course of his career, however regardless the shapes were generally quite readable and gave a strong 3-dimensional look to characters, also further displaying a excellent understanding of form. Nakatsuru could also pack outstanding expression into characters, really elevating the scene, and this was a feature that stood in his work from the early days of Dragon Ball all the way into Z and beyond. And although adding a lot of pen strokes to characters wasn't a feature solely unique to him and was especially a staple predominantly of Sato and Oguchi's work, it certainly wasn't absent from Nakatsuru's either, and personally I feel added to the charm of his already amazing style. For example, the first Kamehameha we see in the series engulfs the cast with shadows illustrated with a plethora of pen strokes, adding a rougher feel and creates a noticeable shift in style compared to the much softer art style we are generally treated with in early Dragon Ball, and a stylistic choice that makes a modest return in his portion for episode 26. However, this specific stylistic take, solely in the context of this attack, definitely was toned down and outright non-existent in some cases within the future Kamehameha attacks he went on to animate. However, from a general standpoint, and more specifically character art, the shading out of areas in shadow with pen strokes became more prominent throughout his work, especially later in the original Dragon Ball series, such as in the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, and was definitely a common stylistic take that existed throughout his work in Dragon Ball Z, which added further depth and grit to a character and overall integrated well into the more serious shift of tone the series had headed. However, in the later portion of the series, while not gone by any means, it was somewhat reduced. However, this also applied to many other animators as well, and the reason was more than likely due to Toriyama's own art style becoming more refined, which of course had influence on the staff who were always trying to match the latest look. But outside of Nakatsuru's gorgeous character art embodying all the charm from Toriyama's work, especially in Goku, his effects work was definitely unique and stunning to see, such as in movie 5, where we get a pile of these beautiful, sharp, abstract shapes of aura just covering the screen as Goku dashes away. All this scene from movie 3, we get an explosion of effects as Goku shoots upward with these gorgeous smoke effects, again with a lot of interesting and dynamic shapes. Furthermore, the way he has drawn the smoke follows a smooth S-curve pattern, which carries a strong sense of motion in relation to the character, with additional smoke also wrapping around in a spiral motion of the aura from the Kaioken, which further helps illustrate speed as Goku leaps up so fast the dust is sucked partly up in somewhat of a vacuum, which then trails him. All these design choices may seem minor at first glance, but when compiled together they provide a really interesting scene and add to the visual sensation of an attack. However, Nakatsuru's skill and talent doesn't even begin to stop there. When it comes to his animation when overlooking his body of work, generally the timing and flow in between action was executed well. His animation additionally held a lot of fluidity, which certainly wasn't a trait absent from his earlier work either. His action scenes also displayed excellent and interesting choreographing. For example, in episode 71, Yamcha takes on quite a cool martial arts pose for a brief instant after dishing out a flurry of attacks with the palm of his fist, and then after delivering several more blows, again he flicks his right hand around with the palm facing the opponent, then strikes with the back of his left hand, then finishes it off with a roundhouse kick. Although the exact form of martial arts these moves were inspired from is unknown, they were all unique additions Nakatsuru added that weren't in the present manga, giving some more depth to an otherwise simple battle. Furthermore, within his battle scenes, it wasn't uncommon for the characters to do some sort of flip or barrel roll through the air, which provided a somewhat bouncy, energetic, and alive feeling to characters. His camera work within scenes shouldn't go unmentioned either. His ability to effortlessly move the camera around a character or characters certainly was an engaging way to draw you further into a scene and really establishes dominance and strength of said character, such as here where we have this shot zoom up on Cooler, then pan around several times, adding to his imposing presence, which only increases as he easily strikes Goku, which also carried a lot of impact, as did his punches generally. Now, as stated earlier, Nakatsuru only filled the role of animation supervisor and assistant animation supervisor a handful of times, such as episode 120 of Dragon Ball Z or the Bardock special. And although his work as a supervisor could tend to lean on heavy corrections, especially episode 120, however, the artwork was consistently good throughout the entirety of this episode, and not only this episode in particular, but under his supervision in general. Finally, the last and massive contribution Nakatsuru made was filling the role of character designer for the Buu arc. Now, at this point in the series, Minoru Maeda, the character designer for this series, had taken an unfortunate decline within his work. While not outright bad by any means, the main issue is that his approach to the series rather felt outdated and mediocre in comparison to especially his older work and many other animators such as Sato, Nakatsuru, and Yamamoto, and further failed to keep up to the art style Toriyama's work was heading. However, with Nakatsuru as character designer, he gave the series' visuals a breath of fresh air, and as stated numerous times, like always, he replicates Toriyama's style superbly, and his sheets for Vegito provided an excellent example of this. The likeness in the face, clothing, and the general anatomy is outstanding as always. He even details the eyebrows with several pen strokes, which was a small feature that was not always present, but would appear in close-up shots of characters within Toriyama's work. And he still embodied several traits of his predecessor Maeda, still giving characters more so in the face, especially a softer and rounder look. Overall, the designs of the characters felt refined, modern, and more in line with the manga. So, whether it's his animation, game covers, character designs, and even manga work at one point, Nakatsuru exceeded in all fields and had a massive positive influence on the series as a whole. Personally, I feel his newer work over the past decades is still interesting and fresh. It also holds a great balance between feeling modern while also familiar, and well, that's why Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru was and still is a legend within the franchise. So thank you everyone for watching this video. It's been some time since I've made any new additions to this series, and quite a while since I've made a video in general. Or if you've been following me for a good time now, a video a month was a regular occurrence at one point, but this video was definitely a heap of fun to make, and it surprisingly took around about 4 to 5 days to write the script, even though it is not an overly long script. There is just a lot of research needed for these videos, and I want it to be as accurate as possible. Although, come to think of it, the previous entries took around a similar amount of time, and it's one reason why I don't plan to make a new addition to this series every week. But anyway, with that, hope to see you guys soon.